And our final candidate for the U.S. Representative to Congress's 6th District is Martin J. Elsass, Libertarian.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, folks. I am Martin Elsass, and I am Libertarian candidate for U.S. House of Representatives. When I first got the invitation to come down here, and I did what I do when I get these invitations, I went right to my GPS and started punching in the address. You get to that part where you put in Lansing, and it sits there for half an hour trying to search for Lansing. So then I ran to my computer, and I typed it into the Google Maps, and Google pulled it up, but it immediately sparked and said Bridgeport. I said, people in Lansing are going to understand that when I used to travel, and I would tell people that I'm from East Palestine, Ohio, I live in Columbiana, Ohio, but you can't find it on a map. You should appreciate that. When I traveled into the South, when I was living in Nashville, I used to tell people, I'm from Columbiana. They'd say, where? I say, Youngstown. Everybody's seen the A&E specials about Youngstown. I was listening to Representative Wilson here a minute ago, and he was talking about not privatizing Social Security. It's not going to be a popular stance for me to tell you that I do favor privatizing Social Security. The representative mentioned that there's going to be a $250 bump, though, for those who are collecting Social Security. And I got to ask, where's that money coming from?
Social Security.
We have no money.
2.5.
We got $111 trillion in unfunded mandates right now in the federal budget. Though I would say federal budget, we haven't actually got a federal budget. As a member of the Libertarian Party, our party is the only party that has presented a new budget for fiscal year 2011 to 2012. I have one on the table out there. I recommend everybody pick up a copy and take a look. We watched a Republican White House and a Republican-led Congress lead us into $468 billion in debt. And many times we sat back and we said this is the highest debt in the history of the United States. It's never been this high before. We have to do something. We have to get rid of these Republicans that are running us into the ground. I sat one night with some friends before the 2008 election, and they said, you know, this country's going to turn Democrat. You watch. We're going to get a Democrat in the White House. We're going to get Democrats all over Congress. And sure enough, we did. Because people were fed up with the spending, the out-of-control spending, the wasteful spending. They were out of control with the borrowing. People were fed up. So we got a Democrat White House, we got a Democrat Congress, and they've doubled what it took that former administration 8 years to do. So now here we are 2 years into this administration, and I want to thank Representative Wilson, because had it not been for passing the bank bailouts, I'd not be in this race. I was happily working for a bus company in Nashville, Tennessee. We leased the entertainer coaches you see out on all the rock concert tours. They leased those buses from my company and companies like one I worked for. And after the bank bailouts came, so did 30 letters from our finance companies telling us that because of the new regulations, they had to restructure those loans. And we had an opportunity to pay off each and every one of those loans individually or lose the buses. A week later, we went from having 30 buses in our fleet to having 2 buses in our fleet. We shut down our shop. We laid off 5 mechanics. We laid off 28 drivers. We had an office staff of 6 people. I was one of 5 that was let go in the office. After that, I spent several months throwing my remote control at my television set, watching more bailouts come, watching other stimulus packages, watching then health care. And I have to tell you that I'm not impressed. Now I come back to the overspending. We're looking now at this election saying we need another change. And as I said, I sat around a fire with some friends and they were telling me, well, the country's going to have to go back to the Republicans. Short-term memory being what short-term memory is, apparently nobody remembers it. It was just a couple years ago that the Republicans had us at the highest debt margin we'd ever seen. Yes, it's more than doubled now. But you want to go back to the good old days of just $468 billion in debt? The good old days of only 7.2% unemployment? With no ceiling in sight? I don't want to go there. I decided, and I told them that night, and as I tell you tonight, when you dig it in a hole, eventually you reach a point where you're nearing the bottom. You have to start digging or else you're over your head. And they said, well, that's what we would be doing. I said, no, if you vote for a Republican in this race, you're just going to a smaller shovel. You want to vote for a candidate that offers you a lifeline, offers you a ladder, can help you get out of the debt, and find our way back to what we believe in as our principles in these small towns and in these communities, and become self-sufficient within our communities first, and tell the federal government to get out of our lives. I thank you for your time.